Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I want to let everybody know that I am like at the very tail end of a cold, so if I have to step out to get a drink or something, I apologize. That said, it is 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this to order and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one republic, one stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Len, and then Adrian. Okay, we need to vote on that too. Any discussion? I have to look at it too. Okay, all in favor? Go ahead and raise your hand. Let's see, Len, Adrian. Looks unanimous. Okay, do we have enough people here? Just to double check. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah, you
5,
got
6, 7. Okay, 8. Bruce just joined. Okay. And I assume Paul will be here as soon as he gets home. Public input and announcements. From my understanding, we have one person signed up. Why don't you head up over there so you're next to a microphone?
Right here?
Yep. And Peg TV, you can just get the back of your head.
Do you want me to sit or stand?
Up to you.
Up to you.
I'll stand. Hi, my name is Wendy Wentz. I reside in Ludlow, but my daughter is a tuition student here at MRU, and I'm also a special educator for the district. I would like to thank the student representatives. They are reaching out to all students and staff, so I feel that they are truly a voice for MRU. Each meeting sparks conversations with my daughter and coworkers, so thank you, Lacey, Chris, and Sydney. I would also like to thank the board, administration, and community for their support of the Foundations program. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for approving the renovation of the old superintendent's office on the Clarendon campus. We currently have 7 students from kindergarten to 7th grade, and we're starting to feel a little cramped. But every day I hear about more and more students who are struggling in the larger traditional classrooms, and I just want to take them all. Having a larger space will allow us to help more students find their success, and I'd like to extend an invitation to the board and any administration to visit the classroom at any time. I absolutely love to talk about the program and the classroom and the students, and I usually can't stop talking about them. And my students, especially the younger ones, would be happy to give you a tour. They're all very proud of our space, and we are very excited to see the work on the building. It has been challenging this year in such a small space and with teacher shortages, but every single one of them has felt success this year. The good days far outweigh the bad days. This truly is my dream job. I am so very grateful, and thank you for your support for the Foundations program. And I'm excited for Act 173 because it opens up my program and allows me to consult with more students, to collaborate with more teachers, and to work with many more students than I was able to in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Wendy, how long have you been in the Foundations program? Since its start, right? Which was how many years ago?
5 years.
5 years. And I think having somebody fill that role for 5 years is phenomenal. And the work that you've done with those kids, we hear frequently from Coral the good things that are happening. So thank you. We're grateful to have you.
Thank you.
I also want to remind you, Stephanie, it's good that you positive things, but we also just want to remind everybody that the chat window cannot be used for conversations. Saying hoorahs and stuff like that, I'm okay with, and letting know technical stuff, but I wanted to remind everybody that because I forgot to do that at the beginning. And that was all sent up. Any comments? Besides, yeah.
I'd just like to reiterate what Brian said. Thank you very much. Obviously, you're very committed to the program. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and we just had a 1-hour PD on Act 173, and your program got brought up in a positive light
Yeah.
from
Did
that.
not
So-
coordinate. We did not.
So, yes, it was really good for us to hear, especially after our last hour of training.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go on to approval of minutes from 4/6/22.
Adrian moves to approve.
Adrian, and then Sam is seconding. Sorry, Liz, she beat you to it.
I just do want to note, we also have ones from 4/1 that just aren't listed on the agenda, called out differently.
What?
Yeah, I love Ann's expression.
The first, from when we had our special meeting,
Yep,
that they all need to be approved.
okay.
I just noticed it wasn't on the agenda. I'm sorry I didn't bring it up earlier.
Ann, were those included in your packet? 4/1, when you emailed it?
They were.
They were included in that packet?
Yep. there.
Okay, so board members got a chance to see it. So in that case, I'm going to include also 4/1 approval. After, well, I got to do the 6 first.
I would ask that you not, because I can vote on one, but I can't vote on the other.
I'm going to vote for them separately, Len.
Sorry about interjecting the confusion. I didn't want to forget after we voted to mention it.
Okay, so right now we have a first and second on 4/6. Any discussion about 4/6 notes? No. Then can I have a vote for approval? 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'll abstain, DJ.
Okay. And Len is abstaining from 4/6. I think everybody else was a yes. Okay. 4/1. Adrian, can you call the 4/1?
Sure.
Approve it.
I guess Adrian is calling, or motioning to approve 4/1 minutes. Do I have a second? I'm just filling in for a sec. Okay, Len, thank you. Are there any comments, corrections? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Are we approving the minutes of 4/1 as presented? Okay. We're all good. Sam, oh yes, I do see Samson.
Yep.
BJ's, okay, you have a unanimous vote. You're good.
Okay, so that looks like it passed.
Yes.
Thank you. I apologize. That may not be the first time I have to run out to get a drink. Adrian definitely approved. Student representatives.
I will.
Are we here?
Yeah.
Hi. We're on vacation this week, which is nice. Last vacation of the year until break. Spring sports are doing good. I know varsity baseball has a game tomorrow. Ultimate Frisbee had a game tonight. I'm unsure of what the outcome was. I noticed the,
Varsity Softball has a game, or is it, I don't know. There's a softball game on Saturday, I believe. Oh, Friday. And it's away. But, yeah, go on.
yeah, spring sports though has a pretty good turnout with numbers. I think it's really good having all the kids from all sorts of levels of grades, from middle school to seniors, participating in what's there. I was going to baseball practice tonight, and I noticed that the student parking lot was getting swept and cleaned. So I don't know what the backstory is. Maybe their parking lot, they're gonna get spray painted numbers and everything. That'd be cool. But yeah, that's it for right now. So we go back to school.
And your efforts seem to be noticed, so that was good by the public, so. Okay. Thank you. And
Any questions?
I just want to know if they're counting the days yet.
Yeah, it's been faster. I think the seniors don't, our last day is June 1st, and graduation is June 8th.
I believe it is the 8th, yes.
Yes.
It is, okay, that's, I'm seeing, I barely even, too much going on. Yeah, it's exciting, new chapter in life coming up. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. We have our athletic update, and I actually see Kim on here.
Yep, Kim is here. And I wanted to mention something that I heard the other day before Kim shares. I chatted with Kim about this. I was on a regional superintendent call last week, and they were talking about, and I live under a rock. I'm not the biggest sports fan in the world. I did follow Carolina basketball through March, don't worry. But when it comes to football, I don't follow much. The regional superintendents were talking about Burlington and South Burlington, both rather large high schools, not being able to field a football team, which I thought was pretty incredible. And maybe some of you have heard this, maybe some of you haven't, but I thought that was interesting context just to think about, you know, where we are and how things are going, and some of the work that's being done to try and engage our kids. I think it's worth knowing that. That said, Kim, do you want to share what is going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my camera is not working on my computer right now, so if it pops on, it pops on. So I caught the end of what Sid and Chris were talking about with some of the activities that are going on. We have about 110 student athletes participating in spring sports this spring, and all of the teams minus middle school have already held games. So tonight we actually held our first ultimate frisbee game at Mill River. They played Leland and Gray. The outcome was 14-8. We lost, but it was the first time we posted that, the first time we posted a game. We haven't played in almost 2 years, so it's really exciting to see the kids out there. We have kids that are doing multiple sports, so they're doing ultimate and another activity as well. Also doing music and theater, so they're just kind of doing everything. So we have 9 spring teams this year. We have varsity baseball, middle school baseball. We were really hopeful that we were going to have a JV baseball program, and we had the numbers till about a week and a half ago when we had about 4 students decide they didn't want to continue, and that really was unfortunate because we would have had that level to grow our varsity program. So instead, everybody that is 9 through 12 is on the varsity team. That coach is doing, I think, a great job. He's super supportive, always positive, and it's really nice to see that, and the kids seem to be really receptive to that. So we have 3 levels at softball this year, and that's a first in about 7 years probably. I think we've had a JV program 1 other year. So we have varsity softball, JV, and middle school, all with really healthy numbers, about 12, 14, and 15 at each level. Again, we have the ultimate frisbee team, and then we have the high school track and field and middle school track and field. And then in the spring, we also do unified basketball, which we've had 4 games already. And I would really encourage anybody in the community, especially board members, if you're available next week, we have our last home game, and it is such a rewarding sport to watch. Everybody cheers for everybody. It doesn't matter if you win or you lose. It is just a game that I think every student athlete, every parent should come and see just how the atmosphere is, because it's really rewarding. So we have a game Monday at home at 4 o'clock, if anybody is interested. And I just wanted to talk about, Brian just mentioned football. And as you all know, we hired a new football coach for this coming season. He's been holding workouts 3 days a week, and he's having about 25 to 30 students attend those workouts. So the vibe has been, it's been awesome. We haven't had or seen those numbers in a very long time. And the kids seem to be really pumped about it. I just talked with our varsity girls soccer coach, and they are putting together Monday or Thursday some drop-in sessions for students to come. Also trying to open up to the community to have people just come and drop in on the weekends. No commitment, no cost, just, you know, fun little side games, skills stuff going on, just to help build our programs. And, you know, we talked about elementary a couple meetings ago in the fall, and I really got a lot of feedback. And I really think in the fall this year, we have to offer 3rd and 4th grade levels. We had a lot of students and parents reaching out about that. And so I think we'll see a 3rd and 4th grade soccer program and a 5th and 6th, which is super exciting to build the program coming up through. Our wrestling coach is going to be doing open mat sessions twice a month for any wrestlers, any age, to come and do. So kind of to carry over what Coach Pritchard and Coach Kaminsky do from about March, end of February to middle of April with our youth leagues. And then just to put a little plug in, our Booster Club will be looking for new members. They will be having or hosting their annual meeting, so they'll be electing new members. So if you're interested, Tracy Spencer is a good person to reach out to, or Lisa Stratton, or Wendy Savory. Those would be the 3 people if anybody is interested in joining the Booster Club. Without the Booster Club, there are some things that Mill River Athletics would not be able to support, and they are there to, you know, get those things that coaches request have during a season, where we just haven't budgeted for some of those things, and they're there to support that. Other than that, I would just encourage anybody to come out to a game. The Texan club scene, teachers, community members, other students at the games. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Hi, Kim, I have one. Sorry. I know last year we got a complaint from a community member in terms of the fields.
Yep.
How are they this spring?
They're not any better, but they're not any worse. There's a lot that needs to be done to the fields, and just to be completely honest, it's not going to be something that's fixed overnight or within a season. It's something that we really need to take into consideration, you know, 5 years, 10 years down the road, which it actually needs to be sooner than that. Our fields probably will be deemed unsafe if they continue to go the way that they're going. You know, our main varsity field is in not the greatest shape. We kind of piece it together for, you know, soccer and football, and then, you know, our baseball and softball fields the infields are great. We have those done every year. But again, our outfields are our middle school soccer field and our, you know, JV varsity soccer practice field. So they're not in the best of shape. I really think that's a conversation we need to have to kind of put a plan together of how can we improve those fields. Because we talk about equity a lot, and to look at some of those fields, you know, personally, it's embarrassing to have a team out there when I know what it could look like. So I think, you know, we just got to kind of get together and figure out what that would look like. And I know there's a lot of people that want to help with that. So a lot of people see it, and we just kind of just got to get on the same page and put a plan together to make it better.
Can we do a preliminary meeting of folks who are, and I'm not trying to overstep any boundaries here, and if anybody wants to jump in, please feel free. But I really think improving the fields and doing the things, as Kim says, is a long-term prospect. But Kim, can you, I'm sorry I'm going to ask you this, can you come up with a plan that we as a board can look at and work with you in developing where we go from here?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's not, I would say that's probably something I could bring in the summer to a meeting, once I get, sit down with those coaches, and Gary's been involved in that as well. So, yeah, absolutely, it would just take a little bit of time to put some of that together and lay it all out, so you can see what it would look like.
And
I think that, I'm sorry, Brian, I think that's fine, and that's what I think we need to do. I know some folks feel that athletics isn't important in Mill River, but I really feel that it's part of whatever program you offer at a high school, whether it's arts or music, athletics is a part of it. So I think I'm willing to do whatever you need. So, and I'm sure the rest of the board is there as well. We just need some guidance as to how to go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think keeping our kids active is a part of keeping them healthy and has a lot to do with academics too. Yeah, I wonder if, I think bringing a plan is great. I wonder if starting at buildings and grounds would give a little more opportunity for conversation around that plan before something is fully developed and brought to the board. That would just be my input. Give a little more time for more heads to look at the plan and have some feedback.
And I agree.
And you beat me to it.
Oh, okay. I'll be
Same
quiet.
thing.
I'll be quiet.
No, that's fine.
I also, Kim, could you tell us again when the Booster Club was meeting? I wrote it down, but I didn't write the time and date.
Yes, I can give you the exact date. I'll have to, let me just look through my email and I can send a message to you. I just
Okay,
gotta,
thanks.
yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Kim, will you copy me on that, please?
Yeah.
This is Liz. Thanks.
Okay, Kim, I got another question for you.
Sure.
Because this has always been my thing. I heard you talking more about increasing stuff with the elementary school, and I know we've been working with that, and that's always been a pet peeve of mine since I started on the board. Who's overseeing that, and how do we continue to get that to grow?
It's a great question. I think when we talked about this last June, this was like the trial year of how that was going to look. And I think a lot of people thought I was the overseer of everything, and that's not what I was doing. Because everything was based out of Clarendon, Fred was kind of the overseer because they have their own athletic director. Eric McKee was the athletic director for Clarendon, really the district, because that's where everything elementary-wise came out of. So I think that wasn't communicated the best. And then once we got that communicated out there, it was a little better. It's a lot. Myself and Fred and Sean Bendig, who was the soccer coach, we hired at that point, the soccer coach for the elementary level. And that's really, besides that coach coming to practices with my high school team, that's really all the involvement my high school coach had with that individual. And going forward next year, we have to hire different coaches for those roles. So again, I think that's something we need to dive more into. There's a lot of just things I observed over the year that could be different. I'm not at those elementary schools, so it's harder for me to kind of know what's going on a day-to-day and get that information out to parents. Whereas at the high school, I can throw that on a Facebook page. I can send out an email, group email out to all those parents. I think there just has to be a little more control with that elementary AD for the district, and however that may look. Maybe next year Wallingford has teams out of their school. We just don't know with numbers, and I think with especially fall opening up third and fourth grade level soccer, it's going to continue to grow. But I think that's something we need to continue to work on. The new principal coming into Clarendon, I think that's something she'll need to be involved with, as long as, as well as the other principals in the district, because they all helped out with winter and being there for games that we hosted, whether it was at Clarendon or at Mill River. But yeah, there's definitely what we talked about in June, or that proposal that was put out. There are things that definitely need to be tweaked, and some things that need to be added or taken away.
Okay, Liz has a question.
I actually just have a thought that I want to share, BJ, with you and Kim. I am certainly no expert on the matter, and I don't know much about any of this, but it seems to me that our town recreation departments might be able to add capacity to this work that we're trying to build out, and so I just want to kind of put that out there. Just a thought.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's certain things that the rec programs can help with, especially in the spring right now. That's baseball and softball are out of their rec towns. The elementaries don't have baseball and softball teams. So that's something we could definitely, have them assist with some things.
Yeah, okay, so that's still always going to be one of my things is elementary school, organizing the elementary school athletics, whether it is working with the rec group, or whether it is, and if it's out of Clarendon, one of the things I've always observed as a parent, and now that both of my kids are going to be in Mill River next year, is that it sometimes was hard for Wallingford to join, an alternate school to join, like Wallingford to join Clarendon's team because of travel and because of timing of when things were. So I'm hoping we can look at that more. So I'm just going to throw that to you, Brian, if you can just put that up on the wall somewhere to, not on an immediate to do, but maybe it just, let's not forget about. Okay, any other questions for Kim?
I would also just say that on the athletic webpage, on the Mill River page, there's a Google Doc that has all activities listed out. The calendar is till December right now. Like I'll be putting in the fall schedule that I already have. We just got, so I'll be updating that. But it has in there, our AAU teams that are practicing. I put in there when, our games are, practices are. So that's updated on a daily basis. And that'll continue through the summer with these open mats for wrestling. When soccer pickup gets going, we'll put that in there so community members can see that. And then there's also it's called Scorebook Live. That's what we've gone to for reporting scores for the high school. That is like a dashboard on the bottom of our webpage, so you can see what the scores are when there's a game, and also on Twitter. If you follow Twitter, we have the Mill River Twitter page going for games as well. Liz?
I just want to share publicly, because I did email at least board members. Kim, I don't even know if I copied you, but as an AAU parent, we have a beautiful gym. I have to follow my AAU players all over the county, and we have a beautiful gym. I was sitting in our Mill River stands when I was, I heard parents behind me saying, "This is a beautiful gym." And so I just want to commend everybody who takes care of that space, because it really is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
Yeah, thank you.
The next thing is, we have data overview on here.
So I can share a little bit, and what we had talked about when we were building the agenda was that we were doing the board PD, but that we wanted to share something publicly too, if folks didn't join and see the PD. On the agenda, it says data. We did not get to the data part. We talked a lot about Act 173. So if I were to summarize what we talked about for 173, I would say we talked about the funding and how we are now getting a block grant instead of a reimbursement model. And then the other half of Act 173 is the flexibility that you heard Wendy Wentz public comment mention a little bit, that her program, which has been historically special ed, because of Act 173 next year, now we can use that flexibility to serve more students through that program. So there are the pros and cons of 173. The cons are the funding structure changes in a way that we have less funding, but the flexibility increases so that we can hopefully serve more students faster and get them the best resources we have available. So that would be my overview.
For the data piece, I know you were looking at the winter data. Do you have like a one-page thing that we can just take a look at for the public, since it's on the agenda?
Yeah, I don't have anything I can share in broad strokes. What I can say is our SBAC data from last year in reading more or less follows state averages. There are a couple of spots where certain grade levels don't follow the state average for reading. Math SBAC last year is a little less sunny picture, where we don't hit the state averages in more grades than we do. Math, I think, is something that we've struggled in the last couple of years, where we haven't seen that same struggle in reading. For our local STAR data, what I would share is that we see math growth in every single classroom. Every single grade level. So if you look at 5th grade, on average, classes are making growth on our local assessment. In reading, you could say the same thing minus 3 classrooms. So there are 16 classrooms that we're looking at, grade levels at each school. 3 of those classrooms didn't make growth. I wonder about that, where the SBAC is showing that we're struggling more in math. I think it kind of does make sense that we actually are showing growth in math. Because if our kids are behind in math, if we're doing reasonable work with them, they're going to show growth. If our kids are not behind in ELA, it's harder to show that growth. So I wonder if that's why the SBAC and our local data tell 2 slightly different stories. SBAC is talking about proficiency level and are you there yet? When we look at STAR, we're looking at growth. So our math students might not be there yet, but we're seeing growth in the district. Our ELA students are closer to being there, and we're not seeing quite as much growth. But largely, all but 3 classes, we are seeing that growth. So that would be my quick snapshot overview if I had to compare and contrast the state testing versus the local testing. There are things that are good, there are things that are bad. But at the end of the day, we don't care how good they are or how bad they are. We have work to do no matter what.
Okay.
Is that helpful, BJ?
That is helpful. I got 2 things. One.
And I would imagine when the board does want to reschedule that data presentation, I'll have something more formal publicly.
Yeah.
After I've shared something with the board more formally.
I know something I would like to see is a planned data presentation after the fall, winter, and spring assessment windows.
And I think the board goals have 2 in a year? We can do more than that. But I think the board
I know the STAR's done three times, and SBAC is 1.
And we can do 4 or 5 data presentations. Something that I mentioned earlier in the board PD that I'd say again, and I think makes tons of sense around data. I don't think I should be the only person you're hearing from about data. Historically, it really has been me, largely, that brings data to the board. I think you should be hearing from school-based teams too. And I think that gives you a larger picture of what we do and how we do it and how things are going than just a couple of data points that I bring. So I would love to do more with that rather than less, if that makes sense.
And I got another question for you, and I'm pretty sure you can do this off the top of your head.
Yeah.
Can you explain the difference between the type of test SBAC is versus the type of test that STAR 360 and even our proficiencies, kind of how each of those put together, their windows?
Yep. So the SBAC, the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium test, is something that we give once a year, and that's something that all of Vermont State gives as a federal accountability measure. That's something that a lot of folks do give regionally too. A lot of states across the country do, but not every state subscribes to the SBAC. We give that in the spring, and we give that in mathematics, in English language arts, and we actually have a science assessment that is like the SBAC assessment that we give too. We have a PE assessment that we haven't given for the last several years because of the pandemic. So those are our 4 state accountability assessments. What the SBAC is looking for is a fairly high level of proficiency, and students are either above proficiency or below proficiency. The SBAC actually breaks it down into 4 quadrants, but when we're reporting scores, really the number that people want to know is how many kids are proficient. STAR is an assessment that we give locally. That's one that it's not for accountability measures. It's not for folks to print an article in the newspaper and try and see how schools are doing. It's for our folks to use locally to see if students are making growth. And that's where I was saying a little bit ago, our math scores don't look great, but we are seeing growth. STAR is incredibly useful for us because we can look at our students in the fall. We can see if there's been learning loss over the summer since the previous spring. We can assess them in winter to see if they're making progress and are on track, and then we can assess them again in the spring. That test is about a 20-minute test for reading and about a 20-minute test for math. So it's far easier to give and get some reliable results, where the SBAC is going to take you a couple of days to give. Question, Adrian?
Oh, I just wanted to know, when you say it shows growth, does it show a rate of growth?
So, great question, and I will go over this in far more detail when I do a presentation for the board with all the data. STAR identifies somewhere around 40 to 50 points on a scale score as being 1 year's worth of growth. So what we absolutely need from every single student every year is 1 year's worth of growth. We know that's possible, and we know that we have to be able to pull that off. Some students, we need to try and do more than that to get them caught up. So that 40 or 50 points on a scale score is how we measure that. And the classrooms that I was mentioning, every classroom made growth in math. Every classroom, on average, I think the number was about 33 points. So that 40 to 50 is a year's worth of growth. Well, that was winter, not the full way through the year. So we believe that those classrooms are on track to continue out the year and have made that year's worth of growth. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Oh, sorry, I didn't finish answering your question, BJ. SBAC is the federal accountability measure that gets printed in the newspaper. STAR we use locally. We've reported that to the board a lot. When I do my presentations, I talk about STAR and how the two tell us different things, and how STAR is so useful in the classroom for a teacher identifying student A, what are they struggling with? Did the help that I gave them over these 2 months actually help? Let me see. For that progress monitoring. The last piece you talked about was proficiency and how that might be different. When we talk about proficiency, we are talking about classroom teachers' tools, assessments, tests that they give, where SBAC is federal accountability, STAR is a local assessment, but that assessment is given nationally. So that's something that we get tons of data from, and we're comparing our students against students making growth all across the country. Proficiency would be those pieces where on Friday the English teacher gives an assessment. So on Friday the English teacher can tell, did my students learn this new concept of theme that I'm talking about? SBAC and STAR are going to be worried about reading comprehension in broader strokes than what that proficiency-based assessment that the classroom teacher develops is going to be looking at. It's going to be looking at things much smaller and kind of on a week-by-week basis to see if students are learning the materials that need to be learning and they're approaching proficiency. And if they are, you would expect that those STAR scores and those SBAC scores do rise too. Good question.
Any other quick questions about data before we move on? Okay. Brian, thank you. That was very helpful.
Yep. And more coming, absolutely.
Yep. We have meeting format and location. I know, Brian, you and I talked about some ideas. Do you have those written down? We have a plan you might
Actually,
suggest?
I left that sticky, oh, no, I think I have that sticky note right here. Actually, no, I think I don't.
I think what it was is we had 4 more meetings left.
And we had actually started with the next meeting on the 4th. And we had talked about going to each school, each of the 4 meetings that we have for the rest of the year. We had identified the 18th as Clarendon, because the 18th Clarendon is running a program into the evening, and no matter what the board does, I really would encourage the board to stop by Clarendon on the 18th before you come to the board meeting. Aside from that, I think we had just selected the other schools for the other dates.
Yep, and-
Clarendon being the 18th was the only one that really made a huge difference.
June 15th is technically after the last day of school, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
But
No, Wednesday, the 15th is the last day of school.
is the last day of school.
So question would be, does the board want to travel to those 4 schools, the elementaries, for the next 4 board meetings, with the understanding that we're highly unlikely that we're going to run a hybrid format if we do that? Running a hybrid format means probably about an hour to an hour and a half of work to tear everything in this room down, because that would then need to be transported to an elementary school and set up appropriately. Then at the end of that evening, it would have to be torn down and taken back. So it could be done, but it seems like a lot of work. And I don't know who would do it if not me. Just being
Would we,
honest.
sorry.
Yep.
Would we even be able to meet in the elementary schools when, or in any of the schools when schools closed? I mean, is there even staff to set up tables and, they might be in the middle of doing the gym floors or something.
I'd say, meeting in the high school over the summer, meeting in the elementaries over the summer, I don't know that it would be a huge difference. We could ask Gary. I know Gary's here.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that would prevent us from meeting in any of the buildings at this point in time.
Len's got a question, it looks like.
Len?
Yeah, just a question. Do we want to meet on the 18th, which is the same night as graduation? Because I'm
wait.
guessing that some board members, I think that's what I heard, that the 18th was graduation.
8th is graduation.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Nope,
Never mind.
no, hey, it's worth checking, it's worth checking.
It's the 8th.
Rain or shine.
Okay.
So, I'm a big fan of at least visiting the schools once a.
It's been a while.
It's been a while that I have been in these schools, and I know I personally don't like representing a school I have not stepped in almost 2 years with the pandemic. So I am a fan of visiting the schools, and then next year starting off the year with a schedule, which we can talk about during the summer, but
I would vote, I mean, could we wait until school, do it a couple schools this year, this school year, 5/18 and 6/15, and then start up again in the fall? Schools look a whole lot better when things are on the walls and, they look.
well, that's why I want to try to get the last four meetings as well, schools in session.
Oh, so you want to do both meetings?
Yeah, I want to do both meetings, so we
Okay.
hit.
Sorry, I
we
didn't
have-
understand that.
Yeah, we have
Yep.
4 more meetings left,
Okay,
both the first of the month and
yep.
is that the third?
First and third, yeah. And
First
that's a
and
good
third.
point, because in the past, when we did rotate that way,
You
it
only
was
did one.
always elementary, high school, elementary, high school. So you always knew that, say, the third Wednesday of the month was back at the high school.
Do we have to have hybrid meetings for those visits? We have PEG TV,
Yeah.
people can watch.
We don't have to. We're not required to.
And and it's a good point. PEG TV will be at it irregardless. So the community will have a video of our meeting.
And half of us are here in person, so we'll all be there in person.
And we do still have a provision where if folks want to share public comment in written format to be read at the meeting, it can still be read at the meeting. So I think we've put some things in place that we maybe didn't have in place previously that would help support access.
And if someone's out of the state, Len, I don't know when you're coming back.
Maybe never.
You know, we could go old school and do the phone call thing, or just one.
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, I know that's available because I did that in previous years. I appreciate the thought. My question was, in the past, we sort of skipped a meeting in June.
Yep.
And I just throw that out there. It doesn't matter to me, and I'm not saying it because I may or may not be there. I should be there. But I don't want to think about in terms of, you know, whether we have a meeting or not, because it gave, I mean, in the previous years, I'm going back, we didn't have a meeting in April, during April vacation, because school wasn't in session. And I know Gary says we can have a meeting anytime, anywhere, and that's great, and I appreciate that, Gary. Just something to think about, that's all. And I'm not opposed to any of these dates, and I'm not opposed to being in person. At this point, we'll talk about next year. But, you know, I don't know, I guess I would just ask about meetings in June.
Well, I think with the plan, the 2 meetings that we have scheduled in June would be there. Even if we had that June 15th meeting, and the one agenda item is how to schedule being in person for next year. Like I said, I want to at least visit the schools, and we have 4 more meetings left.
Okay.
Is my thing, I don't know.
I'm fine. I'm fine with it as long as we don't make everybody go crazy and pull all this stuff out and bring it 4 times in the next 2 months. I think that's an unreasonable request.
I mean, I'd like to hear from the people who are especially on the hybrid now. So I know Sam, Liz, your regular hybrids, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm an enthusiastic nodder, I know. So I you know, would speak up if I have any. I just personally, I will be out of town for our next meeting on Wednesday the 4th, but I couldn't attend hybrid either way, unfortunately. So I understand that I'll unfortunately miss one, but whatever school that is, I'll make a special trip to.
It wouldn't be a Star Wars conference, you know. May the 4th be with you.
No, I know, right? It's too great. So we're headed up to almost Canada to go visit one of our partner organizations up in the Akwesasne Mohawk. So it'll be a fun trip, but that's just when it's going to be.
Nice. Liz, Bruce.
I'll just say that, you know, I am an enthusiastic joiner by Google Meet because it makes my life that much easier. But I will make my best effort to be where I need to be when I need to be there. And if I, for some reason, can't be there, I will put people in place who can do the things that I would do if I were there.
Okay. Bruce?
I usually come to the meetings, but tonight we had tennis practice. I just got home, so I could get there by 6.
Okay. Do I have to have a vote on this? I don't think so.
Just figure that.
Meeting location?
You know what, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
All in favor of the next 4 meetings being in-person meetings at each of the schools. It's actually going to be each of the elementary schools. Just raise your hand.
Is there a way we can somehow nail down where, even tentatively? I know you said you had a thing. Even if you just email us, knowing that it's going to be coming soon, that would just be helpful.
Well, Sam, since you're missing, when was the last time you were in Shrewsbury?
I mean, the last time I was there at all was at the playground, and I can't remember exactly what day it was, so I go to the playground fairly often, but inside, I don't mind missing Shrewsbury, because I can get there easily as well, as much as it's my home turf.
That was your point.
That's certainly
Yeah.
for me.
Like I said, the only one we had nailed down was Clarendon, because they had an event. So,
Definitely.
if you would say, hey, I'm okay with, you have anything, Josh?
No, I was in between voting. In motion.
He's just ready.
I
Okay.
was ready for it.
So, maybe that first day we'll hit Timoth. Actually, Brian, if you want to check with the administrators.
Yep.
To see if there's
Days
any
are better than others.
better time or another. I'm not expecting any presentations from the administrators or a student or anything like that.
Visit. Yep.
It may be nice for them to just walk us around the school and show us, what's up on the wall or something like that. Just, we're there. We haven't been there in 2 years. Even around the building, the outside. I mean, it was so cool at Timoth looking at the outside classroom and seeing stuff like that. So, and the
Yeah, I can
playground
check
at
with them.
Shrewsbury.
Yep.
So if anything, just maybe a mini tour.
Yep, I'll check with them, and then as soon as I have an idea, I will make sure we get those out to folks as soon as possible, so they can start planning as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, group. Okay. Board training options. I don't remember this one. Oh, that,
I think Andrea was going to share a little more on that one, maybe.
yeah, and I don't know how much she's prepped for that one, but what I know about that one is Jackie, our consultant, gave us some options for working together as a board. I know Adrian has mentioned the new gentleman who has offered some really good,
There's a new guy at the VSBA,
at the new guy at the
a board
VSBA,
development person. That's what his job is.
that really can do some stuff with there. It would be nice if we can get something together like that, either through retreats or something else. My question is, what's the best way to make it happen? I mean, I don't know how much work Andrea has been able to look into that. If that's something that you want. What are you guys thinking? I mean, is this something we want to do as a board, to try and do some type of board training offered by an outside source?
And I'll throw in one detail that might be helpful. There is training required by statute, is my understanding, that board chair and myself would have to go through. There is not a statutory requirement that I'm aware of that all board members would have to go through, but there are trainings that are available because of that statute, and folks are always encouraged and welcome to participate. And I think having a fair number of new folks on the board, it wouldn't hurt for folks to figure out a way to participate somehow, somewhere. So that's my context.
Yeah, and I think the ones that I was reading into, it almost seems like there's ones that we can do as a board.
Yep.
So it's not just me going to a workshop or Doug going to a workshop again.
Yeah, and they can do work on like helping us develop a strategic plan for ourselves, which might be nice, since we don't have a huge amount of direction at the moment.
Yeah, and the thing I don't necessarily see, but I think it's going into this one, I'm going to talk about a retreat. We tried to get the retreat going for the bylaws, and there was just too much going on this between vacations and Easter, and just complete burnout on my part of meetings. It didn't happen. One of the things that I was talking with Brian about is possibly planning a summer retreat that's also with the administration, but it's not that we'd be with the administration the whole time. It would be kind of like breakout groups. Sometimes we'd be together, sometimes we'd be apart. And I'm wondering if that strategic planning might be part of it, if that can be made into an annual thing, and that's when we review our goals and we review our bylaws on an annual basis.
That's a nice idea. I like it.
So it's not so much trying to get everybody together at random times, and has not worked out for us in the past. So that was kind of also under the board training, something I was thinking about pursuing. And if that's something we want Brian and I to look into more. I see a lot of heads nodding.
And I think, strategic planning comes up, and we have board goals, and we had talked about being willing to revisit the board goals and trying to set up a retreat maybe time this summer between admin and the board. I think if we can ever access training in a way that it's very relevant because it's helping us actually work rather than just sit and listen, I think that's always preferable from my end. I'd rather be getting help working on something than just listening.
Mm-hmm. So almost combining that strategic planning into building the goals in coordination with the administration. And hopefully also with a breakout session to get the bylaws reviewed on an annual basis too. Len?
Yeah, I think, what's been hard for us, and this is just my opinion, what's been hard is we're trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And I think once we put it in place, that we're gonna meet on a yearly basis, I think it will be much better. Mm-hmm. It will be much easier. We won't have all this stuff to piddle through before we can. It should be fairly simple. Here's the bylaws, here's the review, here's the goals, here's the review. And I think particularly for the goals, the administration is critical there. I really think they are. The bylaws are old and were created out of the district coming together. And some communities wanting to protect themselves, rightly so. So I think if we can get the bylaws done at some point, I think that will be easy to update. And I don't think the goals will be difficult to update with input from the administration. I'm pointing to this corner because that's where Brian is. Sorry, Brian.
No, that's fine. And since you pointed at me, can I throw one thing in? I don't want to lose that piece about trying to engage the community somehow in those goals. And I know you're just not saying it. I know you agree.
Well, and we had talked, Sam, I'll go to you because you're in the upper corner here. We had talked about setting up something where we invite the community members in and to include them in the whole goal planning and development. And I think that's what we need to do.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't have every single answer, but I really think I like the idea of having something in the summer. And I've been a stickler about the bylaws, and I just have been because we got into trouble with them. So, something in the summer, and people say, well, we can't do anything in the summer because everybody's on vacation. I'm saying, no, all the more reason we can have it outside. We don't have to, I'll cook hamburgers and hot dogs or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. I think it would be a great opportunity. We could coordinate it with Kim in terms of any extracurricular activities that are going on. I think we need to make it bigger.
Yeah, and that's exactly why when I would talk to Brian, is like, I changed the conversation after the last time the bylaws thing didn't work. It's like, okay, rather than thinking of how to solve it right now, how do we solve it every year? And that's where I think an annual summer retreat as a expectation of this board, even if it turns into a 2-day retreat, I don't know, but.
This is Josh. I totally agree that it should be a yearly retreat, and I think especially we are new, there's a lot of us new, so me and Paul are super new. Having a facilitator there for like a first round of because the thing about the retreat is we are dedicating more time, and so we want that time to be used efficiently. And instead of trying to just create that culture in ourselves, having a facilitator there to help create the culture we want at the retreats, I think is very important to making it easier, to Len's point, of being like, okay, here we go, we're going to set it up like this is what it's going to look like basically every year. and then moving forward from that. So I'm on board with doing an annual and at least this time having a facilitator there to help.
Okay. And to your, the public comment thing, I think it's even okay if we come out of that retreat with a draft that we want to present to the public to get input on. Because that at least gets us, so the administration and us are on board. Now let's see what the public wants to, it gives us something the public can look at.
Instead of blank page, here's what we're thinking, are we crazy? You know,
Right.
is this
Yeah.
going the right direction? Would you shift it a little bit one way or the other? Yeah.
It's very much different to start with nothing
Yeah.
and expect
Yeah.
30 or 40 people to suddenly come together than it is to have a group present something to them for comment and change.
As long as we're really, and I know that's where everybody is right now, so I'm not saying this because I think that anybody isn't thinking this, but as long as we present it and we know we're willing to take that input, that feedback,
Absolutely.
and we
That's
are
what
going
I
to
mean.
make changes,
Yeah.
I think that's important. But
But to have
again, I
something to
think
build
that's
on.
where we all are, but I think it's worth saying.
Okay. So what I'm going to say with that one is, Brian, you and me, let's keep this in the, keep talking about this one. And then we'll work with the coordinator. So I might reach out to you, Adrian, since you seem to know the, know a little bit more about that one. And we'll keep Andrea in the
Yeah, absolutely.
loop. She's not here, so I don't want to
Yep.
be that person today and throw something on her back. Okay. Wallingford budget transfer approval.
I think Stan is on, and the next two, I believe, are both his.
Good evening, everybody. I'm making a request for the Wallingford Elementary School to transfer some money to cover some buildings and ground supplies for the playground and for the gym that they would like to pay for in this fiscal year budget. The reason why I'm asking for approval of the transfer is, per our fiscal management policy E1, if the expenditure is $2,500 or more and it's unplanned in the budget, we need approval from the board to do the transfer and the purchase. So Wallingford would like to purchase a Gaga pit, exercise playground equipment, and also floor mats for the gym. The total cost of these purchases will be around $10,000. So what I would like to have the board is to make a motion to approve a transfer of $7,300 from the winter sports program line at Wallingford, and also a transfer of $2,700 from their instructional supply line to cover these purchases.
Yes, I'll make that motion for, so we can start the discussion.
And or do we second it now?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, second it. Discussion?
Just a quick question. And I don't remember everything I read in the ESS stuff. But I know some schools were doing some updating in terms of exactly this, in terms of phys ed, I don't want to say phys ed, in terms of equipment and things that they needed in order for students to participate. I don't know if this is different or what. I just throw that out there.
I was actually at the meeting where Wallingford and Dan was talking about the ESSER funds and how he wants to use it. The way, things that he was suggesting, I think it's okay to talk about, to use the ESSER funds is actually for, he wants to do some building improvement. So one of the ones that was talked about was redoing the floors. And obviously, the word asbestos gets thrown into that.
The cost starts adding up, and I think part of it is they're looking at, and I think it's safe to say all of the buildings are looking at improvement projects that are going to be costly, where it would be hard, $10,000 is not anything to laugh at, but $10,000 is a small project compared to some of the things that they want to use the funding for. And the timeline on that funding is, it might not happen until a year from now or longer, just by the time those projects get approved, and then the construction, after the grant approval comes the construction project approval, and then you have to find the contractor and then do all the work on their schedule. So that would be the line I'd draw, that the ESSER is looking at bigger pieces that are going to happen further down the road, that this is a little smaller and they're hoping for quicker.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Input, that's why I asked.
Yeah, no, good question.
Yeah, and I do believe Wallingford did not make it to PICO this year. So I'm guessing that line item of the winter sports program was not utilized to the way it has in the past. So this is a really good alternate way to take the money and move it. I'll also check with the the PTO person, aka my wife, and see if the PTO has any funding to help with this one too. But any other discussion? Okay, call the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. There's Liz. It looks unanimous, so I'm going to say it's approved.
Thank you.
You can stand. Construction bid approval. I believe that's you too, Stan. Stan, you muted. There you go.
I can go ahead with this, Liz, if you don't mind, or this originally.
Not at all.
Okay.
Just so folks know, I am eating.
Originally, to give you a little background, the Foundations Buildings project, we had asked the board to agree to a contract with EEI for not to exceed $600,000 for that project of the building. And EEI had done that proposal for the $600,000 under the impression that they could break up the contract into, break up the project into two separate contracts. One, they would use the federal funds that we are using for the project to purchase HVAC equipment, and then the other part of the project, which would be to, pay contractors, would be used with the local funding that we are using in regards to that project. I had checked with the Federal Division of Labor at a webinar and asked them the question whether or not this was allowable. It was allowable to do the separate contracts, but since this was a related project, even though they were under separate contracts, they would still come under the Davis-Bacon rules, which apply to when you use federal funds for these types of projects. Then you have to pay the prevailing wage and labor rates that are in your area. So EEI had to go back to its subcontractors and get the project rebid based on the Davis-Bacon rules of providing the prevailing wage rates and labor rates for the region. And that increased the project by $21,000. What are we asking for the board is to authorize us to increase the funding on the project by that $21,000, but not to increase the contract with EEI. The $21,000 would be paid by the district directly. The funding for that project, for the extra cost of the $21,000, which would be next year, would come from our district capital maintenance line, which has a budget in that on that line of $60,000. So that would be used to cover the $21,000 increase. So I ask that the board authorize, approve an increase in the foundation buildings project to not to exceed $21,000 to cover the anticipated cost increases associated with the Davis-Bacon wage rate requirement.
So moved. Thank you, Stan.
And Sam seconded. Okay, any discussion? Len?
And I just want to say this up front. I have nothing against what Stan and Gary are planning to do. However, my history goes back some. And if you remember, many of you won't, and I'll keep this brief, I apologize. No, I don't apologize. We were told that the superintendent's office had to move to the high school because that building, there was a lot of things. Anyway, I'm going to oppose it, not because I oppose what Gary and Stan are doing. I'm opposing it based on past history.
And that also does bring up the point, I mean, why does it work for the foundation program and not for the administration? And I'm okay with, if somebody wants to answer that.
Because we weren't willing to stick $600,000 on the superintendent's office.
We locally.
Which is fine. I just think it's a good thing to say out loud then.
Locally, we did not want anything to do with pouring money into that building for administrative purposes. Now we have grant funding from the federal government that's allowable use for construction, which grant funding allowable for construction doesn't happen very often. So it just lined up this time, and it could be used for foundations, which we, feel strongly is an important program to invest in.
So.
And again, I support the programs, and I appreciate what you're doing, but the whole way it was done in the past, I don't appreciate, and I'll let it go with that again.
Okay. So I'm going to call a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Do a name call, because we're going to have at least one no.
I was going to say. It's not unanimous. Okay. Anybody not in favor, please raise your hand. I have only Len that says not in favor. Speak up if you're somebody else, okay? Anybody who wants to abstain, speak up. Okay, so we have Len as a no, everybody else is a yes. There you go. Committee reports, negotiations.
I don't have anything new to report.
Nothing to note. Personnel.
Hi there. We don't have anything to report. We're meeting 5th of May, I believe. And the other thing I would throw out there is, because I wasn't at the last personnel meeting, if anybody took any kind of notes, if they would send them to me, I can put them together and send them on to Ann. I would really appreciate that.
Who took notes?
And I appreciate the folks who were there and took care of things.
Because we talked about it.
Doug?
I don't know, I don't think I took them over that at all.
And we, just so you know, Len, we talked about trying to find another note taker at that meeting, which is why I thought we identified somebody to take notes, because that's where we talked about that. I did put something out internally to folks to try and see if we had anybody internally that wanted to start taking minutes for any of the committees. So we're trying to get that.
Well, and I apologize, obviously I wasn't there.
Oh, no, yeah.
But we were dancing around tornadoes. But if anybody has any notes that they took, if you could send them to me via email, I can put some notes together to get them to Ann. Particularly in terms of, the critical pieces are who was there. And I know we did some approval of coaches' contracts, which I can get. But that's really all we need, and I don't think a lot of stuff was done.
No, I think you're right, Len, that it was a pretty clear agenda. I wonder if Matt took notes.
I think we asked.
I know we talked about it.
Yeah.
I don't remember volunteering, but I'll look through all my paperwork. Still the off chance.
Okay. Len, do me a favor and send an email blast to the committee members.
About giving you some information on the superintendent evaluation?
That too.
No.
Oh.
No, just anybody take notes. That way I can remember it after the meeting.
I will do that.
Both of those things,
Also
both
need
of
to
those
send out a
things.
blast on the superintendent evaluation, where people are supposed to get back to you with updating those pages that they were assigned.
Okay,
And I will be the first to admit I haven't done mine, but you will see it this week.
okay. So, anything else with personnel?
No, sir.
Okay. Policy. Andrea is not here. She asked me to read off. We have 2 policies for a first reading that we'd like approval for first reading. I'll do them separately. So first one is D7, which is a special education policy. The very, very quick summary of that is we need to follow the manual that the VSBA tells us to. So do I have a motion? Len, do you have a second? Adrian? Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Looks unanimous. Okay. That's approved. Next one is E15, which is the bonus payments to staff. And I want to remind everybody that the only reason why we were able to do that this year was because of ESSER funds. So this is not a common thing. We just happen to have some funding that didn't affect the taxpayers. But we needed to have a policy in place to be able to do that. So may I have a motion to approve E15, bonus payments to staff? I see Adrian and Len, yep. Any discussion?
There was some question on the wording on the.
Oh, Brian, thank you.
At the end of the.
Yep.
Did we figure that out?
I talked to Stan, and the policy committee was okay with 2 slight variations of language, and the language that Stan and I came up with being the most appropriate for what we actually did. So if we ever did it again, big if, we would follow this. The gist of it is the full school board will make the determination of the payment date range. So the full board would say something like, this is to be paid this fiscal year, or this is to be paid as soon as practically possible, something like that, if that's reasonable.
Okay. I'm gonna call the vote. All in favor, raise your hand. To me, it looks unanimous. Okay. Normal meetings are second Tuesday of the month, so I'm gonna guess, Len, what's up?
Just a quick statement. I sent out the website for the Vermont School Boards Association that gets you to the policies, and I hope folks got those. If you didn't, let me know. It's basically btsba.org kind of thing, and it sets up what policies they require, what they suggest, and what are sort of out there. So I ask that folks on the policy committee take a look at it as we move forward so that we can match them up.
Yeah, it took me a little bit to actually really figure that one out. And any new board members, I would highly suggest perusing that once through at least. They're not ones that were approved, but there are ones that are suggested in the wording and where we normally get our wording from.
And I'm glad you said that, Len, because that jogged my memory to mention to everybody that the next policy committee meeting, really the agenda is largely around setting the schedule for what's going to be looked at next. So there are no new policies coming up. And that's May 10, it looks like, on the calendar.
Okay.
Yeah, and so by looking at those and laying them aside, what we have, it will help us, if we have a policy that they're saying, that it has to be there, and we haven't looked at it since 1987, then
we probably should.
Look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, we tried to do that. We had the rotation thing. It just we had some policies that took several months to complete. So it kind of threw that rotation out of there, but,
Criticism of the former chair.
go right ahead. I jumped in that one, right into the fire pit on that one. Buildings and grounds.
Oh, that'd be me. We met, let me make sure the date, yeah, the 6th here of this month. And I tried something that probably didn't work very well. We were doing that meeting for an hour, and then we had the other meeting after that, an hour, and then we had about an hour and a half or 2 hours of board. Time we were done, we were pretty exhausted. The last of it will tell you when the next one's going to be. We did a lot of talking about what we just voted on with the foundation building and what's happened there and all. So I'm glad we were able to make that go through. Hopefully we can get that up and running this coming September. The kids will move into it without a problem. I think it's kind of nice there because they can actually generate some use with some of the kids over at the elementary school and come over and do some work over there, and actually take the kids over to the elementary school and work over there that we're there with the project. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay, we started up a couple weeks ago actually doing some work in the lawns and the fields at the district down here and some of the other schools, and of course we've been running some games, so it's actually working out pretty well at that point. The other schools that we're going, in Tinmouth, there's an issue with the slide that's up there, so we're either going to do some repairs on that or replace it if we have to. Not sure that's going to know until later on. We also had some repairs coming on at Shrewsbury Mountain School. It's with the air exchange system up there. And a lot of the pandemic, we had to run that kind of mostly full-time to keep the germs out where they belong, flying off to somebody else. We worked up with a paving company to do a 5-year plan, repairs for the paving. If you've come in and out of the school, you notice there's a couple good potholes just before we get out to go straight to go out of the building. That will work. That's, I think, and I'm sure about this, I may have to check, should check, not have to. The cost of that is $150,000 over a 5-year plan, so some of that's going to get done. Clarendon Elementary School is going to have some problems with some floor tiles. Those of you that listened before, we do have an issue sometimes with asbestos and stuff, and some of those tiles do have a very minuscule amount, but there is some there. Some of that will go out and get gone. Let's see, where else am I? Usual required repairs that will be done by the staff or sent out to others. Those are the ones inside the building, painting certain floors or doing a wall somewhere, or doing a whole corner. That'll be done as usual. There is some testing currently going on PFOA. That's stuff that we had considerably, all right, we can talk now. We had a problem with that in Clarendon due to the fact that a lot of it was used at the airport and made it down into the water system. It was kind of rough. We're going to be doing some of those. It's not all of them, but most of the district buildings are going to get checked on that. One thing that's keeps coming up on things is transportation and busing issues and such. It's supposedly getting worse in the last few months or so. So we're having a problem. We may end up have to do some changing in bus routes and stuff for the kids. There's bus drivers that we might be able to find out there, but it's getting rough, that's for sure. And let's see, nothing of large fix was happening during the vacation week, which is right now. That's good. Our next meeting is I'm hopefully going to be somewhere around the first Tuesday in June, and that's tentative, and I'll let everybody know as soon as I can figure out what we're going to do.
Okay. I actually have a couple questions. Len and Gary, I'm wondering if it would be good if Gary should attend one of our personnel committee meetings and really work with us on the busing personnel issue.
That's an idea. Good idea.
I know that got brought up because I sat in at the very end of that one, and he knows some things that are going around the state, but think that would be kind of good. And it may be behoven to invite Sam, if you're not on personnel already, as the communications person, because I think a lot of how we have to do it will be communicated out. Make sense?
Yeah, what's the date, May 5th, 4th?
I think
Or,
Yeah.
For our next board meeting? Because the personnel would meet the first Monday, or first Wednesday.
Yeah, May 4th.
The 4th?
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, so I won't be able to make that one.
okay. But we can at least include Stan and,
Gary?
and we can start talking about that. That's fine. And then, Sam, we can follow up with you because I think aren't we meeting later in May in the community conversation?
May 10th, spoiler alert, that's the next community engagement.
So, I mean, that would be a good time. We can follow right up on that.
That sounds great, Len. Can you just plan to say something about that? I'll add that to the agenda for that meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Perfect.
The only other thing I'm raising my hand about is I think at some point we do need to talk about, the buildings and grounds needs to talk about buildings and grounds. If you remember last year, we had some concerns from folks, coaches and some community members that the sign out front wasn't looking pretty. And I'm not a flower guy, but that and the fields and things, and I really think we need to, whether it's another committee or whatever, but I think Buildings and Grounds needs to look at the buildings and grounds, particularly at the high school. I think that's important, particularly since we had complaints last year. And Liz, you talked about, people complimenting us on the gym, and the gym is beautiful. The fields and the outside of the building should be just as beautiful, because that's where people come in, and that's what they see first, before they go into our beautiful gym. So I think we need to take a look at that. Doug, and I'd ask you and your Buildings and Grounds Committee to take a look at that.
Yeah,
And include Kim.
Yeah, I'll talk with Gary and maybe get Kim involved too for some ideas on the field. I think last year we had somebody do a couple donuts in the middle of the football field. That was kind of rough. I think that's gotten better, but we have other issues, I suppose. Let's take a look.
But those things you can't, I can't tell you the number of donuts I've seen on the fields of Millbrook. I mean, those things happen, but it's the other stuff of, is it mowed, is it taken care of, and it goes back to, I don't know, Rudy Giuliani or somebody in there. If a window's broken and you fix it, then it doesn't get any bigger. And so if the fields are mowed and look pretty, and people are taking pride in that, you're not gonna have folks, I don't believe, doing donuts, although we always did. So anyway.
Len's not going into what he did in high school.
And we did have our last snow, so we could plant flowers. I think we're safe to do that now.
Yeah. We also had someone come in and do extra mowing. I'm interested to see, did that work out well?
I know about that, yeah.
Yeah, so last year we hired a contractor to come in and mow the field, just mow the sports fields. And I know we're getting into that again, so I'm wondering.
I'd like to hear from Kim on that specifically. Anecdotally, I heard a couple of folks say that it was looking better, but I don't take my word for that. Kim will tell you exactly how that was working.
Yeah, that's what we have to rely on, I think.
Yep.
And just because she brings people out there all the time. And it's important that they see us at our best. And I know it might sound minute, but people appreciate, as an AD, at a football game, and the referees would come in at halftime and we'd give them water. Well, who cares about that? Nobody even sees it happen, but it makes a difference, because when those referees walk away and they go to the next field and they don't get any water, all of a sudden this place was a lot better because we got, you know, it's little stuff like that.
Well,
It's minute, but it's what presents you, and I go back to the sign, we had several complaints last year about the sign. That's the first thing you see at Mill River, is that sign.
well, and I think you have a good point, Len, because there's not one big amazing thing we're gonna do to fix anything.
No.
If we do a lot of little things the right way, fantastic, and we better be doing all the little things the right way. Then we'll get somewhere great, you know, so I agree with that 100%. Your window analogy, I always, as a middle school teacher, it was graffiti in the bathroom. It always multiplies. And our folks here, actually, in the building here are phenomenal in the bathroom, because if I see one day, the next day it's gone. Because everybody knows it grows if you don't address it. So I hear you there. I agree.
I would hope that maybe a student group or club or organization could take charge of the planner with sign.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
If you're involved in something.
I think we need, and Sam, this might be good for community engagement, especially as we're going into it. I know once we merged, we had that little extra group that was supposed to work, the school board was supposed to work with each of the schools. And out of that actually emerged really high engagement with the PTO, is kind of what I saw happen with that. As the last member of the PTO in Wallingford, as we're leaving, I know I've mentioned this to Dan several times, is we need a successor. I'm wondering if that's something the administration needs to revitalize. And I hope we don't lose it in Clarendon, because I know we had it there, but I also know that that initial generation from after the merger is kind of now aging out of the elementary schools. So hopefully we can get them back. And I know there was one at Mill River too that was like that. So as part of the, be nice to re-engage that.
Hey, can we ask our student reps to take charge in terms of taking care of the buildings and grounds part, a little bit? They should be able to encourage folks or do something. It's all community services. I don't know if they still need to do that or anything, but I think that's a piece that could include them.
Yeah, I'll talk to Tyler for sure and see what student groups might be, and I think pulling the student board members in makes tons of sense.
And I'd say even have them join a buildings and grounds meeting, or have a buildings and ground meeting with the students and the student reps would be a good
What do you think is the problem? What do you think we can make changes to make it better for you?
Yeah, because that's what they're mentioning a lot. I mean, I'm really impressed with that, so that might be a good thing to throw on an agenda.
We got to understand that a lot of what goes on in the school belongs to the kids. It's like their second house.
And they see it too. I mean, they see these little things here and there. I mean, I think they've mentioned it a couple times, like, hey, you may not know this, but this would be helpful to us, and we miss that. And
well, and I think you make a good point there, Doug, because how this place runs has a lot to do with them, and if they take ownership of it, if they care about it, they're going to have pride in it, and they're going to keep it up. And I think that makes a difference. I think we had a conversation about pride a couple of weeks back, and I think not losing that thread is important, because we want this place to be something not just we're proud of, but that our students are proud of.
okay. Community engagement.
As if I needed any better segue. The reporting out of that meeting we just had, really the most exciting, energy that has come out of it was how much we are all, with our asterisk of, cautious optimism, looking forward to getting together again and actually going and seeing that field and confirming what it looks like, and returning to having conversations where we've got coffee and treats and just moments to not only incidentally maybe think you recognize somebody with their mask on from across Hannaford, but actually have intentional meetings, including a kickoff to the school year, right? And welcoming all of our new members. So even, this energy is what we're trying to build on. The other big thing will be a real kind of a intentional, robust, like, what can we sustain with a community events calendar, right? Of all the things from bistro to graduation to sporting events, in one spot that is updated and part of the thing. So Brian and I have just chatted about that, really is making that just kind of rote and rhyme for when you have an event. That's just part of it, gets scheduled on the calendar so folks can slap, you subscribe to a Google Calendar and blissfully it just puts it right on there for you. Couldn't be easier. So really just capitalizing on hopefully this momentum that we're all feeling of getting back together and seeing one another. So it all speaks to the intersectionality of going to the schools and seeing the things and the events and all that sort of thing. And so our next meeting, like we said, May 10th at 6:30. And then on the 25th, I'll be sending, after this, probably tomorrow morning, to folks to post to their front porch forums in their local respective communities that aren't mine, about a community conversation, kind of reschedule, insert on the 25th. We're gonna have a couple of members from the Equity Committee, the staff committee, have a conversation, so that'll be the theme of that day. And that, again, is not a warned meeting with an agenda. It's just a chance to chat. It'll be virtual. Myself and Len will be there. Certainly other folks, if they want to join, I'll send that info out too. And you'll see I'll send the info out to all the board members, so you'll see that info coming out. And then get ready for me to start trying to figure out how we're going to do real in-person with a couple of still maybe virtual or hybrid, just to increase accessibility for folks as we emerge into being people in rooms together again.
Sam, what time is that meeting on the 25th? I'm sorry.
6:30 to 7:30.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is that the first community engagement meeting?
What was your question?
That was the first community engagement meeting? Or not the community conversation?
Conversation on the 25th. And then the meeting on May 10th of the committee.
Do you have the schedule of who signed up for what?
There isn't one.
Okay.
No. So Len and I are just doing that one because the Equity Committee asked to do one. So
okay.
It's a special edition, if you will. And then going forward, that's what we're going to discuss at our next meeting, is looking at in-person moments, virtual moments, how we're going to make those happen in the new year as we emerge into this brave new world we find ourselves in.
Okay. Okay. We have finance. Liz, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. Before I get started, I just want to say I'm excited for a community calendar because, for example, Project Grad, which is coming out in our Front Porch Forum, I want that auto-populated to my Google Calendar. I had to manually input it in. Oh. Anyway, all right, let me pull up payroll and pay warrants for this evening. All right, my computer is slow. Okay, so this evening for payroll, we have dated April 8th, regular payroll in the amount of $579,415.36. We have regular payroll dated April 15th in the amount of $6,220.07. And we have a buyback dated April 15th in the amount of $1,177.42 for a grand total of $586,812.85. For pay orders this evening from the general fund, we have a pay order in the amount of $330,988.57. Also from the general fund, we have a pay order in the amount of $12,151.70. From our after-school program, we have a pay order in the amount of $637.32. And from our lunch program, we have a pay order in the amount of $64,361.79 for a total of $408,139.38. Lastly, from our student activity accounts, we have a pay order from Mill River in the amount of $794.10. And I move that we accept and approve payroll and these pay orders as presented.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the payroll and pay orders as presented this evening, please raise your hand. BJ, you are better
Yep.
situated to, thank you.
It looks unanimous.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And the next meeting of the Finance Committee is May 23rd at 5 p.m., and that will be a hybrid meeting.
Next is the ad hoc meetings. Len, you're chair of one of them, right?
Yeah, I am, and I'll speak to that. Because of everything that's been going on, we haven't had a meeting. Because, well.
You froze.
You did.
Anyway, my plan being to make, Jody was gonna talk to us in terms of what do I want to say? The things where you ask people.
Survey?
There you go, thank you
I
very
got
much. I appreciate that, Sam. And talking with Sam and her committee in terms of coordinating the two committees and the two surveys. So we will figure that out and we will get to that in May.
Okay. I got a question. Do you think it's still viable to have the ad hoc committee now that we're hiring out the survey? I'm just throwing it out there. I was going to ask Matt the same thing, but ish.
And I think, because you had two different perspectives that we were doing with the surveys. One was in terms of student retention, and the other was in terms of sort of an overall general picture. We may end up saying that the ad hoc committee that I'm in charge of in terms of student retention doesn't need to be there if we're getting enough information from the other survey. I don't know. But at this point, I think it would be important to make sure that the purpose of the ad hoc committee that I am running is that we have a specific purpose. So we want to make sure that purpose is carrying through. That's all I'd say. And it may, you're right, BJ, we may need to say,
well, I'm wondering if
answered here, so we don't need another one here.
Yeah, I just know we've been talking about the survey for a while. It's coming out. There's a lot of ifs there. I know we could put a little bit more of a request of our registrar's office to try and keep track of like an exit of people who are leaving.
Yeah.
You know, just that little ask. And we may not have data previously, but we may be able to look at data forward. So I'm just trying to figure out what you need to move this forward and finish the task.
Well, yeah, and I agree, because an ad hoc committee is only supposed to last for a limited amount of time. It's not supposed to last until forever.
Yeah.
And so you bring up a good point. I think what I'm thinking out loud here, I think what I'll do is I'll call a meeting of the committee and we can discuss that and then figure out whether we just want to wait and see what comes up in terms of what's getting done by the outside group and see if that fits with what we need. And if we need to tweak it a little bit in one way or another, or if we need something a little bit different, we can do that. So, yeah, you're holding my feet to the fire. Thanks, BJ.
Well, I'm trying to finish. I mean, we're getting to the end of the year, and I would like to get the ad hoc committee stuff buttoned up.
You're good. I appreciate it, because if you don't, nobody else does. So I will set that up, and I will take care of that. Thank you.
Okay. And I also think it's in our board goals too, so it's not like it's going away as a topic of interest.
No.
Okay, and Matt's the other one, he's not here. Did he host any of them?
I don't think anybody's, I had joined that committee and I never got a notice for a meeting,
Okay.
so I don't think he had a chance to.
Because I'm doing the button-up thing, I'm just wondering if that is something and I don't want to do it without Matt here, but I just want to thought process on people, if there's another venue that we can try and get that done through, that we may want to suggest to Matt, say, hey, what if we went through the buildings and grounds, the PTO? Because that might be a really good parent-teacher activity, so just talking to Tyler.
Yeah, and I wonder if the high school would take it on with some, if something's been talked about and developed and there are some ideas, I would imagine the high school would run with it if given
We
the
had given
opportunity.
them the inclusion statement
Yeah.
to develop, and that I don't think is something that you're going to necessarily pass over to the,
No,
to the high
very
school.
true. The inclusion statement probably needs to come back to the full board to be adopted if that's going to go anywhere. But I'm just thinking about
the art installation, absolutely.
the
Yeah.
installation piece, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
But
good.
The inclusion statement
I just don't want it to disappear.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel mad, Matt's not here, I didn't want to, but is that something that could also be symbolized?
Be part of policy.
It could be.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like I said, we have 4 more meetings left in the end of the year. I would really like to button up those 2 ad hoc committees by the end of the year. And that was my point to that. Okay.
I will do my work.
Thanks. We're at transact other legal business. The only thing I have here is the Wallingford Scholarship. Ann and I were talking, and I wish Paul was here because he's the other Wallingford. I know I'm really busy, but I'm willing to. Bruce, Liz, we need to schedule, are you guys willing to, what is that?
Yeah, I already put my availability in the
What?
calendar that
Okay.
Ann put out.
Okay, Ann, you sent out did you send out a thing to us
Yep.
about availability?
Yeah.
Just come to me.
It was late today.
Oh, I must have missed it. Okay, so Wallingford people, we just throw your time in there. We just need like one day to do a scholarship-y thing.
But you only need one person.
And we only need one person from our group who can make it, so.
Do you want to pick who that's going to be, or do you just want to see availability? I guess because if only one person's available when everybody else is, then I guess you know who your person is.
Yeah, I think we'll do the availability ex officio, and we'll fill that out. There it is. Okay. So Wallingford members, just please remember that. Okay, Liz already put his time in. Any other legal business?
Yeah, I would just like to remind members of the Personnel Committee, as I reminded them a few minutes ago, but I will remind them again, we need to do those pages that we were assigned and get them to BJ because he doesn't have anything else to do. And so if we can get them to him and he can put them together there so that maybe by May, whatever it is, 6th, we can button that up so that our incoming superintendent has an idea of what we're going to be evaluating that person on.
I would appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah. Liz?
I just want to quadruple check. Len, I did open it and I didn't see my name on it. Is that correct? Or is everybody on it? Like, was I assigned something?
You are muted, Len.
I sent out to the members of the Personnel Committee an assignment of a page of
Okay.
the superintendent's supervision piece that they were each going to take a look at.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
I gotta refine that email.
Me too.
I'll just say a quick one. This may be a meeting that's traditionally canceled in some years, like some vacation ones are, and sometimes summer ones are too. I appreciate everybody being here for 2 sessions tonight. I know it's a lot of work to do, but I think good work tonight, so I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Yeah, it felt very productive of meetings, both meetings. So, okay. I do not believe we have an executive session, agenda building.
Yep.
Sorry. Agenda building. We'll have approval for 2 policies.
And I think we keep the bylaws on if we can, just, and looking at public meetings in public.
Do you want, how do we want to do the bylaws? Do we want to try and do the bylaws at a 6 o'clock meeting on, it would have to be, let's see.
6/1, or, no, 5/18.
Yeah, the one that doesn't have the
5:18.
personnel meeting in front.
5/18.
Yeah, 5:18 at 6 o'clock, and spend an hour just to knock them
I think that's a
over.
great idea. Get it done.
Yes.
Len, you raising your hand, is that a plus, or? Yeah, okay, thumbs up from Len on that one. So 5:18, 6 o'clock, bylaws.
Even if we don't have everybody there, it still needs to go to the full board for approval.
Yep.
So
Right.
whatever we do, whatever we approve, then we can send it to the full board so that everybody has it before we meet as a full board to approve it.
Yep, and so hopefully we'll have an approval of the bylaws on that same meeting. Okay, we're at the other anything else we want to put in there? We're at a location. I would love just a quick tour. If the principal could give us a tour of the school, I would appreciate it. And even if they want to share something like their ESSER, what they're planning for ESSER funds and things like that, anything they want to share there, that'd be kind of cool.
Would the board want me to try and do 20 minutes data presentation? I probably had more like a 30 or 40, but I can scale it back at least just to keep that conversation going. I can do that, further down the road too.
Which means
I'm talking about the 4th, because the 4th the 4th is not shaping up to be a heavy meeting.
So, BJ, can I just put in a little plug? So, the meetings, is it possible, I feel like historically our meetings have been planned for under 2 hours. And recently they've been 2.5 hours plus. Can we try to keep it under 2 hours? Is that, I know it's challenging, we have a lot of work to do, but,
Well, I mean, other than the bylaws thing, I think keeping it under 2 hours, I mean, we're at the 2-hour mark right now, within 5 minutes of it, around agenda building.
Oh. And the only thing on the 4th right now, because I agree with you, Liz,
Yeah.
I don't love going later than we have to either. Policy approval, a tour, those are 2 things. And then if you wanted 20 minutes of data, I can definitely do that in the future. But the 4th is not looking too long right now.
So we would have personnel at 6.
Yeah.
But, I think in the past it met at 6:30. So, I mean, I'm willing to try to, I don't need to extend it. And at this point of the year, I'm not sure how many position openings we're looking at. I know we still have to talk about Shrewsbury.
I think there's one English teacher that's going to be coming to the 4th. That's all I'm
Yeah.
aware of right now.
Right. And so,
are you talking about 6 o'clock personnel, 6:30 data, and then 7 o'clock board meeting?
Are you
okay with that.
Well, no, I thought that's what you were suggesting. I was just trying to clarify.
Well, that wasn't one that I was suggesting, but your idea is better than mine.
You know what, for the data meeting, as much as I really want to get into it, I would almost rather have that data presentation happen in a hybrid format.
Yeah,
So
fair
that the community can really see it.
How are you
in
going to do
life.
that if we don't have?
We can't do it,
until-
so it wouldn't happen until the summer, is what it would have to happen.
Okay.
But
for
if
that.
if you put on the agenda a data overview, I can do something real quick, just to, so that we're not waiting 2 months to talk about it again. But
I'm
then
also-
we'll do something when we're hybrid again that's extended.
See, this is what I'm thinking. I think what I got for an overview for today, just understanding those,
Okay.
and
Was
it was very
reasonable for now?
satisfying for me.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But I want to get into that routine. So I'm almost thinking,
Yep.
once you have the SBAC data, which I know is
And
the
we'll have
very end of the year.
We'll have spring numbers and we'll have SBAC in the summer. I can share our local stuff. SBAC might not be publicly cleared until fall. So I can do a local data, big one in the summer, and then I can do SBAC in the fall. But yeah, hey, that takes it off my plate for the next meeting or 4, so I don't mind that. That's fine.
What are people thinking about that one? That's my thought on that one.
That's fine. This is Josh, everybody. I just know from conversations with the community, this is one of their talking points.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they want to know about it. And so the more we're educated about it, the better. Even if you wanted to do just like a highlight point for just like, here is a very specific thing that I want to talk about. Like, I'd be not opposed to that for like, instead of, an overview or whatever, just like 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the agenda that says, I'm going to talk about this specific thing. But maybe that's how I feel about it. I don't know what everybody.
Yeah, rather than once
I
or
agree
twice
with
a year
Josh.
and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then have a big one where it is
Right on.
all
Right on.
together. Just so that, because what I don't want is to feel like I have missing some things. Like, because, especially as a new board member, I have people asking me about things that I don't necessarily know about. So like, just a trickle that then leads to a big conversation.
And I think
feels effective.
And I think it's if you do it twice a year, it's a bunch of information, that's it. If you're doing it consistently, it's education.
Yeah.
And I think that matters.
Yeah,
So
I would appreciate that.
Okay. So I'll do 10 minutes data at the next meeting?
A 10-minute data, maybe it would be kind of cool. And then we'll try and work that in as a schedule down the line.
For sure.
Based off the assessment windows.
So just a question, do you want me to schedule for the personnel meeting at 6? And then we end soon, early, and then Brian speaks?
If it's 10 minutes,
if it's 10
I do it in
minutes.
the meeting, yeah.
Do you only want half an hour for personnel?
I think we're okay with that at this point until everybody gets their homework done, including me. I always throw myself out there.
The only thing-
I think we're okay if we meet at 6:30.
The question I have about that one is, we have some pretty big things coming down on personnel in terms of how, the stipends for the excess work that got done as an interim superintendent. And also, Brian, I'm suspecting you might have some anticipated openings coming up soon that you are hoping to fill for July 1?
Yes, but I don't know that I
don't know if you need that, I don't know if you need that time on the 4th.
Okay, then, sorry to be a pain, let me just set it up for 6, and then if we get done early, you can go to the bathroom before the next meeting.
So maybe
And
talk.
take turns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk with Brian.
So,
okay.
Let's I will get it to Ann, the agenda for May 4th at 6 o'clock.
Okay, and what we'll do is, we'll have that one as a Google Meet. So that would be, I will be there, somebody will be there in person, but we'll have that as a Google meeting, because you're not here physically, right?
That would kind of be important for me.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, so everybody who's on the personal.
I thought we were going to another school.
We are going to another school, but we're gonna have to have everybody on the policy committee is just going to have their own computer.
Personnel.
Personnel.
So we're going to meet for personnel at another school?
Yes.
That's what I'm asking.
Yep.
Okay.
But then
Or-
you can pull Len in, we'll figure that out, yep.
Yep.
Or if you want to meet at home and then scoot
Yeah.
over, you can do that too.
I thought I was gonna be home, but, we haven't got a seat in the ground down here, so.
No, it can be in person. We'll just have a meeting. It'll be in person,
We'll just.
but
call
we'll
it.
just have a Google Meet for Len.
The last one, I probably.
So I think we've got an agenda for the 4th, enough to work with then. And some thoughts on the next one even. And we're just at 2 hours.
Yep.
Just pointing that out, right?
Okay. I'm going to say adjourn by consensus
Okay.
at exactly 9 o'clock.